Hi everyone, and welcome back to Business 119 Business Communications. This is our video series, and I want to spend a little bit of time now to talk specifically about a little bit more about your research report. And in this video, I want to cover making your questionnaire and then also making some charts and graphs. So here we are back on our course homepage, and this is the unit for reports. I already talked to you in our last video about picking your research topic and doing some background research. So make sure that you look at the whole unit, make sure that you remember to do chapters 9 and 10. And there's a lot of information with a lot of good tips in here, so make sure that you follow every page in our unit. Also, once you've made your questionnaire, I did update our report unit. So instead of doing our questionnaires in class, since we're fully online now, I've created a new discussion thread here. Once you've made your questionnaire, you're going to post it in the discussion thread. You can either post the whole questionnaire or you can post a link to it. And then I'm going to ask you to take questionnaires and give some feedback to at least 2 of your classmates. So make sure that you allow time to do that. The final research report is due toward the end of May. You need to make your questionnaire and post it by the beginning of May. So just make sure that you keep up with our calendar here on our course homepage. And I want to spend a little bit more time now talking about actually making the questionnaire and then making the charts and graphs from the questionnaire. Remember, what makes this research report probably a little bit different from other reports you may have done in the past is that in addition to looking at what other people say about your topic, we call that secondary research, in this report you're going to use your own individual primary research. And so you have to collect the research, and the tool that we're going to use to collect your research is the questionnaire. So here's the page on making a questionnaire. And again, I recommend that you look at some of the links that I have here. But the questionnaire should be, I'm going to say, 1 to 2 pages, 15 to 20 questions, and it will be a combination of what are called demographic and psychographic questions. Generally, when we make a questionnaire, we want to start with the more general and less threatening questions. Are you a full-time student? Do you work full-time or part-time? And then we want to get to the more intensive questions on a scale of 1 to 10. How important is saving money to you? Where 1 is not very important and 10 is very important. You might even ask, on each paycheck, what percentage of that check are you able to save? So we start with the general broad questions and we move to the more detailed questions. And what I've got here is an example of survey strategy. So again, the general questions: are you a MESA student? Do you work full-time, part-time, on vacations? I'm not working right now. So you'll notice that I'm using a multiple choice strategy for the questions. Make sure that your categories are uniquely specific and they don't overlap. How many hours a week do you work? Fewer than 10, 10 to 20, 21 to 30. You'll notice that there's no overlap in the categories. Try to stay away from binary questions, simple yes, no. I used one here for are you a MESA student, but then I moved into the more detailed multiple choice type questions. You might also stay away from open-ended questions. So instead of saying how much money do you save, which is very open-ended, I'm asking, do you save money from working? And then give them options. I save a portion, I save occasionally, I don't save much. And the reason for that is you want to be very specific. The more specific you are, the better the better chance you'll have of making what are called correlations or connections. And then you can ask these other follow-up questions. What would help you with saving money? Check all that apply. Earning more, studying less, living at home, etc., etc. So for example, you might find that students who work part-time save a little less money, and the reason for that might be they earn less money. Another correlation you might find is that students who live at home might save more money because they have fewer expenses. So you can see what I'm starting to do. I'm being very specific in the way I gather and collect my data. That allows me to do a couple of things. One, I can be very consistent. So I can say 2 people answered this way and 4 people answered this way. When you collect what's called your raw data, you want to be able to say how many people answered each question each way. And then you can start to make your comparisons and look for the patterns and trends. One of the things that you may find, and I mentioned this in our previous video, is if you ask questions on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, for example, people may say, well, you know, it's really important for me to save money, but then I don't save a lot of money. And so what you should look for next is who is able to save more money and why. Look for those patterns. It may be that students who are older and have been working longer are better at budgeting. It may be that students whose parents have taught them about budgeting are better at budgeting and saving money. So then the question is, where do we learn those financial habits? Do we learn them from our parents? Do we learn them at school? Those are the deeper types of questions that you can start to dig out as you design your questionnaire. The same is true, I've given you examples here for student finance, but the same is true for student health. You may find that students who live at home and have help with grocery shopping and cooking are students that have better sleeping habits and they're more healthy when it comes to meals. They might exercise better. You might also find that students who were taught to exercise when they were kids are better at keeping those habits when they get into college and later in life. A lot of times the patterns we learn in childhood are the patterns that we carry with us later into life. So that's what I mean when I say look for the patterns and trends, make the connections and the correlations. Okay? This says bring your completed questionnaire to class, but really what you're going to be doing is you're going to be posting that in our discussion. Okay? Now I want to show you one more thing. As we start to build out the research report, make sure that you follow the outline under the research report prompt. I've given you a very specific outline. You'll be creating business report formatting with headers. You're going to write short paragraphs of text. You can use subheaders. You can use bullet points, but you will be doing some writing, 10 to 12 pages worth of writing. Don't give me all bullet points. You want to have some paragraphs with sections and subsections. You're going to provide background research where you talk about what you learned from your secondary sources. Now, you're also going to show me in the methodology a sample questionnaire. I call that your raw data. So just show me a questionnaire in which you filled in how many people answered each question each way. Once you've done that, you're going to have a pretty good sense of what questions are most important. You don't need to show me a graph for every single question. Some things can simply be described with narrative text. Select the key questions that are the most meaningful and make your charts and graphs to show the patterns, trends, and comparisons. You're also going to be comparing your background research with your own primary research. So what did you find compared to what other people found? Make sure that your background research, when you do it, if you can, is current and local. Make sure that it's relevant. So follow the prompt, follow the outline as a way of pulling all of this together. But what I want to show you now is as you choose which questions are most meaningful and as you make your charts and graphs, You can use Google Docs, Google Forms, but I think I warned you in my last video, you don't want to just show me a bunch of pie charts. I promise you I will. If you just show me a bunch of pie charts, that's not the best representation of your data. So one thing that you can do, and I'm here in a Word document, is you can go to Insert. Let me put my cursor down here. You can go to Insert, and you can choose Chart. And you can pick the type of chart that you want. I can click OK. So you have lots of options. And what you're going to notice is that the chart opens, and you can organize this according to your data. It's going to give you a little spreadsheet here. You can also do this from Excel. I'm doing it in Word. And so your categories might be people who work full-time, part-time, occasionally, only on vacations. You have to tell the table what your categories are. And it might be that this is age ranges. So for people who work full-time, you might have younger than 18, 18 to 24, 24 to 30, for example. And so you can compare in each category who's working full-time, who's working part-time, and you can compare age ranges. This is just a really simple example. I'm just showing you how to insert a chart into your report. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And then when you do your analysis, you're going to look for the trends in the pattern. So again, you don't need a table or chart for every single question. Pick the questions that are the most meaningful and pick charts and graphs that are going to allow you to start making connections, making comparisons, looking for trends. Always, always, always go back and follow the outline under the research report prompt. You're going to be giving me a good 2 to 3 pages of analysis and discussion where you talk about what your data means. All right, so that's a summary of how to design a questionnaire and how to think more analytically about your tables, charts, and graphs.